All right, buckle up everyone, because today we are diving headfirst into some seriously messy online drama.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be good.
We're talking about YouTuber Ethan Klein.
Ah, Ethan Klein.
And let me tell you, things have gotten intense recently.
Oh yeah.
You guys sent over a mountain of Reddit posts
Oh wow.
and comments, and just a quick glance tells me people are not holding back on their opinions about his recent behavior.
Oh no, they're not. They're very opinionated.
Yeah, so for our deep dive today, we're going to be focusing specifically on Ethan's actions, why they've sparked so much backlash,
Right.
and what it all means for being a creator in today's digital world.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's really fascinating how this stuff kind of reveals the underbelly of internet culture.
Absolutely. The speed at which things escalate, the mob mentality, and the almost complete lack of accountability.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, even for someone who follows this stuff pretty closely.
Right.
So where do we even begin with all of this?
Well, I think a good place to start is with this whole content nuke situation.
Content new?
Yeah, essentially, Ethan released this very long video directly targeting fellow streamer Hasan,
Okay.
and it was just immediately met with this tidal wave of criticism.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't just like your average, I disagree with you kind of criticism.
No. People were calling him out for being straight up dishonest, lacking nuance, and basically just trying to like stir up unnecessary drama.
Stir the pot.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was so bad about the video? I mean, besides it being, like you said, super long.
So one of the biggest criticisms was his heavy reliance on these out-of-context clips to, like, try and support his arguments.
Interesting.
You know, it's like he was cherry-picking moments to fit a very specific narrative rather than actually engaging with Hasan's real viewpoints.
Right, and that's where this whole doctored image controversy comes into play,
Oh
right?
yeah, that's a big one.
Do you remind me about that again?
Sure. So Ethan used a screenshot in his video supposedly showing streamer Frogan,
Okay.
who's a friend of Hasan's winning the Rising Star Award at the Streamer Awards twice in a row.
Yep.
No, his intention was obviously to imply that there was some kind of favoritism going on, or even like the awards were rigged.
Interesting.
But get this,
Right.
the image was completely fabricated.
What?
Totally fake.
Wait, are you serious?
I am dead serious.
Where did it even come from?
Well, it turns out it originated from a meme post on the Destiny subreddit,
Oh, wow.
which, if you're not familiar, is like the online community for the streamer known as Destiny, who's kind of notorious for his like controversial takes.
Yep.
And has a very dedicated but often very argumentative fan base.
Oh, yeah. They're a very interesting bunch.
Yeah, so not only was Ethan like potentially using misleading information,
Right.
but he was pulling it from a source that many people see as inherently biased.
Yeah, that's not a good look for him.
Not at all. And to make matters even worse, Lugwig, who's actually involved with the Streamer Awards,
Oh, wait.
publicly debunked the image on his stream,
Yeah.
proving that it was indeed fake.
So he just like straight up called him out.
Oh yeah, he did.
And it's interesting too, because in his video, Ethan was accusing other people of like inserting themselves into the drama.
The irony is not lost on anyone.
But then he's out here using a doctored image pulled from another community entirely.
Yeah, it just doesn't look good.
Not at all.
It really just highlights like the lack of research and due diligence on Ethan's part.
Yeah, major. Yikes.
Like, yikes.
So he creates this so-called nuke. It blows up in his face.
Spectacularly.
And now he's facing this mountain of criticism. So what's his response to all of this?
Well, instead of addressing the very legitimate concerns being raised, he just seems to be doubling down.
Oh no.
And deflecting. He's throwing accusations left and right
At who?
at anyone who criticizes him, basically.
Oh wow.
And just generally refusing to take any responsibility for the harm he's caused.
Wow. That's not a good look.
Not a good look at all.
Nope.
And there's also that whole situation with Atrioc and the deep fakes, right?
Oh, right. That was a big one.
Can you remind me about that? Yeah, so remember when Atrioc, another streamer, was caught watching deepfake porn of female streamers?
Oh yeah, that was a huge scandal.
Yeah, it was understandably a big deal.
Right.
Atrioc, though, to his credit, owned up to his mistake. He showed genuine remorse
Yeah.
and even put his own money into, like, combating deepfakes.
Wow. So he really tried to make things right.
He did. He really stepped up.
So what does Ethan have to do with all this?
Well, Ethan saw this as an opportunity to attack Lugwig again,
Oh no.
criticizing him for remaining friends with Atrioc.
Oh wow. So it's like he's trying to position himself as some kind of moral authority
Yeah, like he's policing everyone else's relationships.
while ignoring his own very questionable behavior.
It's incredibly hypocritical.
It really is.
And speaking of hypocrisy, we can't forget about the QT Cinderella incident.
Oh, yeah, this is where things take a really dark turn, don't they?
This is definitely one of the most disturbing aspects of this whole situation.
So what happened with QT?
Well, QT was one of the streamers who was targeted with those deepfakes, and she was visibly very upset by it.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Ethan, instead of showing any kind of empathy, played a slowed-down Christmas song over a clip of her crying.
He did not.
Oh, he did, and then he laughed about it with his crew.
It's hard to even wrap my head around that.
It's truly baffling.
I mean, we're talking about a victim of online harassment, and his reaction is to mock her.
It's incredibly insensitive.
It really is, and I think it speaks to a larger pattern of behavior with Ethan.
And absolutely.
It's like he thrives on this negativity and drama, even if it comes at the expense of other people's well-being.
It seems to be what drives him at this point.
It's sad, and to make it even worse, he later issued an apology for the QT incident.
Yeah, that apology.
But then rewatched the clip and laughed again on stream.
It just further confirms that there's no real remorse there.
No, it just feels like damage control.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he doesn't actually care about how his actions affect others.
And what's really troubling is that this isn't the first time Ethan's been accused of this kind of behavior.
Oh, really?
Many people in the community have been calling him out for years.
Oh, wow.
But it seems like he's only getting worse, not better.
It's like he's completely lost touch with reality and the impact his actions have on other people.
It's really sad to see.
It is. I mean, he has this huge following, though.
He does.
So surely some people are defending him.
Right, oh, absolutely. And that's what we'll be getting into next.
Okay.
The reactions to Ethan's behavior, even among his own fans, have been incredibly divided.
Divided? How?
It's a whole other layer of this complex story, and it's really fascinating to unpack.
Okay, well, I'm definitely interested to hear more about that. So let's take a quick break. We'll be right back to dive into those divided reactions.
Sounds good. You know, it's fascinating to me how a situation like this really brings to light both the power and the potential pitfalls of online communities.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, we've seen how they can be incredible forces for positive change, right?
Absolutely.
But this whole Ethan Klein drama really shines a light on the dark side.
The underbelly.
Exactly. The toxicity, the mob mentality, and that kind of like blind loyalty that sometimes allows bad behavior to flourish.
It's unsettling to see, honestly.
It really is.
So you mentioned earlier that Ethan's own fan base is actually divided on all of this.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
What are some of the different perspectives we're seeing?
Well, there's definitely a segment of his audience that's trying to justify his actions.
So?
They claim that he's being unfairly targeted, or that it's all just like part of his comedic style. They're like, oh, you guys just need to lighten up and not take everything so seriously.
But is there a line between, like, being authentic to yourself and just being plain cruel?
That's the debate that's raging within his community right now.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff he's said and done goes way beyond harmless jokes.
It really does. And you have these fans that are almost willfully overlooking his behavior because they've been following him for so long.
Right.
And they feel this sense of loyalty to him.
They're like clinging to the Ethan they used to know.
Exactly the one who used to call out other YouTubers for this exact same kind of behavior.
It's like they're experiencing some sort of cognitive dissonance.
Totally. They can't reconcile the Ethan they thought they knew with the person he's become.
And it's interesting because this isn't a phenomenon that's unique to Ethan.
Not at all. We see this all the time with public figures.
Especially online personalities.
Yeah, that parasocial relationship that develops between a creator and their audience can be incredibly strong.
Yeah, you feel like you really know them.
Exactly, and it makes it hard for fans to accept that their idol might actually be flawed.
Or that people change.
Right, and then there's the whole issue of echo chambers.
Which you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, these online communities can become incredibly insular.
Yeah.
They just reinforce existing beliefs and shut out any dissenting voices.
So they're just surrounded by people who agree with them.
Exactly, and it becomes a breeding ground for misinformation and confirmation bias.
So even when presented with like clear evidence that contradicts their view of Ethan,
they just dismiss it.
They're like, oh, it's just hate. Or they're trying to cancel him.
Exactly. It's a very dangerous cycle.
It is. And this isn't just about Ethan Klein and his fans.
Right. This is playing out across the internet.
On every platform.
It's something we all need to be aware of.
Especially those of us who spend a lot of time online.
We have to be conscious of the information we're consuming.
Yeah.
The communities we're engaging with.
And the impact of our own words and actions.
Exactly. It's about developing a healthy level of skepticism.
Right.
Being willing to challenge our own biases.
And actively seeking out diverse perspectives.
Yes. Exactly.
So how are those who were criticizing Ethan responding to these attempts to justify his behavior?
Well, for a lot of them, it's been a really painful process.
I bet.
They're expressing deep disappointment,
Yeah.
anger, sadness.
Makes sense.
They feel betrayed by someone they once admired and supported.
Yeah, it's like a personal loss for some of them.
Especially when you consider how long some of these people have been following Ethan's career. They feel invested in him. And to see him go down this path of self-destruction, alienating his peers and his fans, it's incredibly disheartening for them.
I can't even imagine.
Many have even said they're no longer going to watch his content.
That's a pretty big statement.
It really is, and it just shows how damaging this whole controversy has been to his reputation.
Both within the online community and maybe even beyond that.
It's hard to say what the long-term consequences will be,
Yeah.
but it's very clear that he's lost a lot of goodwill.
So the question is, can he recover from this?
I mean, is redemption even possible at this point?
He seems so dug in,
He does, right?
like unwilling to take responsibility for anything.
It's going to be an uphill battle for sure.
It is. If he even wants to try to rebuild his reputation, he's going to have to do some serious soul searching.
And make some major changes.
Yeah, but I'm not holding my breath.
Good either.
Based on everything we've seen, it just seems like he's more interested in being right,
Than in being a decent human being.
which is a shame.
It is because he does have this platform
He does.
and this voice that could be used for so much good.
Right. He's intelligent. He's funny.
He can connect with an audience.
But he's choosing to use those talents to tear other people down.
Yeah, and perpetuate this toxic online culture that we've been talking about.
It's like he's become the very thing he used to criticize.
It's a tragic irony, for sure.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners from all of this?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But I think the most important thing to remember is this isn't just about Ethan Klein.
Oh, yeah.
This is about the broader issues that plague online spaces.
Like what?
Misinformation, echo chambers, toxicity, and the very real consequences of unchecked power and influence.
So it's kind of a cautionary tale.
In a way, yes.
A reminder to be critical of the information we consume,
Absolutely.
the communities we engage with, and the people we choose to support.
It's a call to action to be more mindful, more empathetic, and more intentional in our own online interactions.
Because we all have a role to play in shaping the digital world we want to live in.
That's right, and sometimes that role involves walking away from toxicity.
Even if it means leaving behind someone we once admired.
It's not always easy,
It's not.
but it's a necessary step in creating a healthier and more productive online experience for everyone.
Well said. You know, as we've been talking about all this, I can't help but think about the role of the platforms themselves in all of this.
Oh.
YouTube and Twitch specifically.
Right,
They've given Ethan this platform,
they have.
and they're profiting from his content, even when that content is actively harmful.
That's a really crucial point, and it raises a lot of questions about platform responsibility, content moderation, and the ethics of profiting from negativity and drama.
Because it's not just about letting people express themselves freely.
Right.
It's about creating a safe and inclusive environment for all users.
And that means taking action against those who violate community guidelines, even if those violators are popular or profitable.
So what can be done? How do we hold these platforms accountable and encourage them to do better?
Well, there are a few things we can do.
Okay.
First, we need to be vocal about our concerns. Report abusive content, engage in constructive dialogue with platform representatives, and use our collective voice to demand change.
And we can vote with our wallets, too.
Exactly.
Choose to support creators and platforms that align with our values, and don't hesitate to unsubscribe or boycott those that don't.
It's about sending a message
Right.
that we won't tolerate toxicity and that we expect better from the companies that profit from our attention and engagement.
And it's about recognizing that these platforms have a responsibility to protect their users.
Not just their bottom line.
Exactly. This whole situation with Ethan Klein has really highlighted the complex relationship between creators, platforms, and audiences.
It really has.
It's a reminder that the actions of individuals can have far-reaching consequences.
And that we all have a role to play in shaping the digital landscape.
It's also a reminder that the internet, for all its wonders and potential, can be a very dark and dangerous place.
It can.
We have to be vigilant, informed, and proactive in creating a better online experience for ourselves and for everyone else.
It's like navigating a minefield sometimes.
Yeah,
You have to be really careful where you step and who you choose to trust.
that's true. But even in the midst of all this negativity, it's important to remember that there are still good people out there.
There are.
fighting for a better internet.
Absolutely.
There are creators who use their platforms for good communities that promote positivity and support, and individuals who are committed to making the online world a more welcoming and inclusive place.
That's a really hopeful thought, and it's something we should all strive for in our own online interactions.
Absolutely, because ultimately the internet is a reflection of ourselves.
It really is.
It's up to us to decide what kind of world we want to create online.
And that starts with each and every one of us.
It's a bit overwhelming to think about sometimes, but it's also really empowering. We have the power to shape this digital landscape.
We do.
And we shouldn't underestimate that power.
Well said. And with that in mind, let's take a moment to focus on some of the positive actions we can take, both as individuals and as a collective, to combat online toxicity and create a healthier digital environment.
It's been pretty heavy going over all this stuff with Ethan Klein.
Yeah, it has.
And it's easy to get kind of bogged down in all the negativity.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's important to like shift gears a little bit.
Absolutely.
And focus on solutions.
Yeah.
Like, what can we actually do to make online spaces better?
Right.
As individuals, I mean.
Well, we already touched on media literacy being so crucial, right?
Yeah.
Checking those sources, seeking out diverse opinions,
Uh-huh.
not taking everything you see at face value.
Right.
That's like your first line of defense against misinformation and manipulation.
Yeah, it's like actually learning to think critically about the online world.
Exactly.
Not just passively consuming whatever algorithm throws at us.
Right.
So media literacy is huge.
It's huge.
What about, like, the way we actually interact with each other online?
Yeah, that's a big one.
I feel like that's where things can get really messy.
Oh, absolutely.
So what are some things we can do to make that better?
Well, instead of like jumping to conclusions or attacking people right off the bat, try to assume good faith until proven otherwise.
Okay, so give people the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly.
I like that.
Ask clarifying questions.
Yeah.
Have those tough conversations, but do it with respect.
Even when it's hard.
Especially when it's hard.
It's so easy to forget that there's a human being on the other side of that screen.
It is, especially when you're in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, you get all caught up in the back and forth.
And sometimes the best thing you can do is just disengage completely.
Walk away.
Walk away. Don't feed the trolls.
Yeah.
Unfollow those accounts that are constantly stressing you out.
Right.
Just curate your online experience to be more positive.
That's good advice.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us could benefit from that.
Me included, for sure.
Yeah. It's easy to get sucked into the drama.
So easy.
But protecting your own mental health is so important.
Absolutely.
But what about those times when we do need to speak up?
Right.
Like when we see harassment happening?
That's where allyship is so crucial.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Support the person being targeted.
Yeah.
Report the abuse to the platform.
Okay.
And speak up against the perpetrator if you feel safe doing so.
Because silence just empowers the bully.
Often, yeah. And even just like sending a message of support to someone who's been harassed can make a world of difference.
Yeah, just letting them know that they're not alone.
It's powerful.
So we talked about individual actions.
Right?
What about the bigger picture, like holding platforms accountable?
That's huge.
Yeah, because it feels like they often get away with doing the bare minimum.
They do.
So what can we do about that?
Well, we can demand better moderation,
Uh-huh.
more transparency about how they handle harassment,
Right.
and real consequences for those who violate community guidelines.
Yeah, hitting that report button actually does make a
It
difference.
does, especially if enough people do it.
And we vote with our wallets, too.
Absolutely.
Supporting creators and platforms that actually share our values sends a strong message.
It does.
It's like putting your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
So this whole Ethan Klein thing, as messy and disheartening as it is,
Yeah.
it's kind of a wake-up call.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not just celebrity gossip. It's a symptom of these much larger problems
That we all have a role in addressing.
that we can't just ignore.
Exactly.
So what's the final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
I would say this. The internet is still relatively young,
It is.
and we're all kind of figuring this out as we go.
Yeah.
But by being mindful informed
Yeah.
and actively trying to shape the online world that we want to see, we can make it a better place for everyone.
I love that. So well said. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with me
It's always a pleasure.
and for sharing all your insights. It's been
Fine.
eye-opening.
Yeah.
And to our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this journey.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We know you're out there making the internet just a little bit brighter.
One interaction at a time.
Yeah, one thoughtful interaction at a time. And until next time, keep asking those tough questions and stay curious.